Welcome back. I'm Seth Needing with the 7-Minute Therapy Session. In previous videos, we've discussed the change process, and we've more specifically taken a look at how do we take our thoughts captive and change the way we think. We've also taken a look at how do we change our feelings or our emotions, and rather than being emotionally driven, being able to be more intentional about our behavior. We've also looked at how do we change our specific behaviors, those that we want to rid ourselves of, and to put in place in a more intentional and deliberate way how we wish to behave. And today we're going to be focusing on how do we change our relationships. So there's many types of relationships, but today I'm going to focus on perhaps the most common ones that I deal with as a therapist, and that's the marital relationship. So secular wisdom, which is supported by our culture here in the United States, tends to be focused on equality, tends to be focused on fairness, and a lot of times we'll hear that relationships should be 50-50. That is a good model for divorce, but I believe it's a terrible model for relationships. In 30 years plus of doing marriage counseling, I have found that that model leads to keeping score. It leads to doing as much as the other partner does in the relationship. And in severely regressed relationships or damaged relationships, it can even lead to, if you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. So a better model for dealing with relationships is the biblical model. Paul, in his letter to the Ephesian church over 2,000 years ago, wrote in Ephesians chapter 5, I believe it was verse 33, that men are to love their wives and the wives are to respect their husbands. That's very interesting language, and I believe it's intentional, because over the years I have found that many women will come into therapy in the marriage and say, I don't feel loved. And many men in the relationship will come in and say, I do not feel respected. So a man's role is to love his wife, and the woman's role is to love her husband. And if they communicate in a very powerful way, they can begin to share with each other what exactly that means. The woman may say, well, you're loving to me in various ways, but my love language is I feel mostly loved with acts of service when you help out around the house or you help with the kids, or I feel loved when we spend quality time together. Whereas a man may say, I feel like you provide acts of service all the time and you enjoy quality time, but I still don't feel respected. And a man's love language may be appreciation. I hear that all the time, that they're looking for words of affirmation or appreciation, confirmation of the value of what they put into the relationship. So a lot of times we'll love people in the way in which we feel loved, but it may not be the way in which our partner feels loved. So if we want to change some of those things, specifically, let's say in a relationship we decide that we're somewhat selfish and we want to throw that off, well then we have to focus on the opposite, which would be being other-centered or putting on a servant's heart rather than a consumer's heart. If we're guilty and find ourselves that we're short, snappy, and have harsh words, we may want to throw that off and to practice the antidote, which is words of affirmation or practicing exhortation, lifting the person up. If we're kind of lazy in relationships and we're not very invested or we're unengaged, we may want to throw that off, and we have to practice the skill of being more present, being more engaged in a relationship. So as we look at different models of the ideal role model of love, I come up with Jesus Christ. He was the perfect model of love. He initiated love while we were still in sin, so he was the initiator. He put on a servant's heart rather than a consumer's heart. He could have said, everybody bow down to me and wash my feet. Instead, he reversed it and he washed our feet. He showed us that love is sacrificial, that there's always a price to pay, there's a cost to pay. I frequently tell my clients that one measure in which they could look at measuring their love is the degree to which they're willing to be inconvenienced for the other person. And then Jesus showed us unconditional love. It wasn't based on our conditions. Actually, the things that we did, the way that we responded to him, the way that we treated him was obviously rejecting and brutal, yet he gave us grace, he gave us forgiveness, he gave us compassion. And one of the other qualities that Jesus role modeled was basing relationships in grace and forgiveness rather than fairness. In other words, he didn't give us what we deserved, he gave us forgiveness and grace. So these qualities or attributes are initiated, I believe, by the most emotionally mature person, by the most spiritually mature person in a relationship. That's why I frequently tell my clients when I do couples therapy or family therapy that the best thing they can offer their spouse or their family is to work on holiness rather than happiness. Because these qualities that we just shared, that Jesus role modeled, are really based in holiness. Initiating the relationship, having a servant's heart, being sacrificial, being other-centered, being unconditional, being focused in grace. So we can learn these qualities and we can actually take those on and practice those. If we look at how God has treated us, it's my belief that we've been loved by God in order to be loving towards other people. We've been forgiven by God in order to be forgiving and grace-filled towards other people. And we've been blessed by God to offer blessings and actually to be a blessing in relationships to other people. And if we're practicing these skills in working on our own holiness, our happiness is likely to result not only for ourselves, but the people we're in relationship with. So thank you for tuning in, and I'm wishing you an awesome relationship and many blessings. And if you find this video helpful, go ahead and share it with other individuals, other couples who you may know that may be struggling somewhat with their relationship. And to go further, if you want to take a look at my book, which is free, go to biblicaltherapyseth.com and you can download the book at absolutely no cost. Thank you very much.